Hello everyone, welcome to our training session on Spark. So enough of practical also. So now it's time again to little deep dive into the Spark and the theory part, how Spark works. We started this whole learning session with the theory itself, but we have done enough practical stuff, enough small projects, so that you can do your hands dirty with the coding part and the syntax part, how we can run that in glue, AWS glue. But here is the thing, every time we are not going to run it in AWS glue. Sometime we have to run it in AWS EMR or some Spark environment. So what I mean to say is AWS glue is a self-managed environment. You don't have to do anything in there. You don't have to do Spark submit and all. You don't have to manage your resources. But some companies will not like to work like that way. They would like to manage their own resources by themselves. Suppose why they would like to do that. So suppose somewhere someone else is doing your job. Okay, you specified that your budget is 10 rupees. Okay, and they are spending the whole budget of 10 rupees. Okay, but if you can do the job, if you have that capacity and you have the budget of 10 rupees, of course, but if you can complete that job within 5 rupees or 6 rupees, you will look into that part, how you can try to complete that job within 5 or 6 rupees, right? So it is like that. So suppose a company, they are providing all the responsibilities to AWS Glue to manage all the resources by itself, because it is serverless. You don't have to specify any resources. So you are doing your Spark stuff there. Okay, they are creating their resources by themselves. You have provided the DPUs count, maximum 10 DPUs you should use, or maximum 2 DPUs you should use. So if you are specifying maximum 10 DPUs you can use, so they can go up to 10 DPUs, right? But suppose if you are managing your Spark job by yourself, okay, that time, 10 DPUs can be required, but you will try to complete the task within 6 DPUs. Okay, that's similar case actually. So if your task can get completed within 6 DPUs, because more DPUs is more cost, right? So that's where sometime we have to think and we have to understand, because suppose we are running huge pipelines and too many jobs are there, right? Then there is cost is also huge, right? It's not like small project where we have few jobs. We can use the serverless AWS Glue and utilize that and do all the tasks. It's not always possible. So that time we have to use server, like AWS EMR, and there is other providers like Azure, GCP, which cloud server we can use, and we can utilize this process. For that, we have to learn how to do Spark submit and all. So here we'll learn how to do Spark submit. So to the process of Spark submit is basically, I'll just give you a glance. So we have learned that Spark need lots of components, right? Like cluster manager, cluster mode, then how much memory a driver will have, how much code a driver will have, how much memory a executor will have, how much code a executor will have. So that type of thing, how much executor we want, we have explained this thing in the architecture itself, right? So while doing the Spark submit, here you can see in the screen, you have to write like this way. Not all the thing every time, but as per your requirement, you have to write it. So suppose you're writing Spark submit, okay, then hyphen master. What will be your master? Suppose you are doing it in just testing purpose. In your computer you can write local. Okay, suppose it's in production mode or development mode, then you have to write yarn. Yarn is a resource manager, or you can say cluster manager or master. Okay, so you have to research a little bit what is this, what it do. You know already what it do, and you have learned that. in architecture itself. Try to recall that, or you can go and check the architecture video. That will help you. Video number 2. Okay, so let's move on. Then we have deploy mode. What mode we want to deploy our Spark? It is cluster mode or client mode. There is two modes. Okay, we'll discuss on this today. Okay, today we have started this Spark Submit video series. Okay, how we'll do the Spark Submit in this series from today. I have started to explain you those things. So today we'll discuss a big on cluster. I mean deploy modes. Okay, then we will have, suppose we want to specify the driver memory, and then driver code, then driver executor. So driver executor code, number of executor, how much executor we need, everything you will understand it, this part in the architecture video number 2. Please go ahead and learn that. That will be very helpful for you. Okay, let's move on. There's lots of thing here. I'll explain everything. I'll try to explain everything one by one in this series. So keep on watching my videos. So let's discuss, start our discussion on the deploy mode today. So yep, so what we'll learn today. So what is Spark Submit? Okay, then we'll learn what are deploy modes, what is client mode, what is cluster mode, why client mode and why cluster mode. So those are the things we're going to learn today in the video. So let's start with the Spark Submit. As I explain you in the Excel itself, that Spark Submit is a comment we have to provide in, suppose, a Spark environment like EMR, AWS EMR. We are running the Spark. There we have to submit the Spark, and we have to write a comment, okay, to run the Spark job. So it will be like Spark Submit, then space, then hyphen master. We have to provide the master, what master we want to use, like local, yarn, mesos. Okay, so basically in production we use yarn. Okay, so then deploy mode. So deploy mode, what mode we need to specify, we want to learn, run it, client mode or cluster mode. This is the thing we will learn today. Okay, then after a space we have to provide our script we have wrote to run the Spark job. Okay, so where the driver run, and how the application is deployed, it is the topic of today. Okay, so there is, we have discussed already, there is two mode. First is client mode, another is cluster mode. Okay, in the client mode, driver run on the machine you submit from. On the cluster mode, driver run inside the cluster. Okay, let's take a better understanding on this. Okay, so in that case we'll just go to this page, and here we'll open the diagram I have prepared to explain you. Yeah, so here you can see this is the system where we are doing the Spark Submit. Okay, then our job, the application will create the driver and Spark session. This thing we have understood in the Spark architecture itself. Again, the video number 2, you can go and check that out. That is very, very, very important video. And then here in the circle, you can see, consider this as cluster. Okay, so in the cluster we are creating the resource manager. Okay, now resource manager will create the executors. Suppose we have specified in the Spark Submit 4 executor will need, so 4 executor it is preparing. Okay, but here in the client mode, what is the difference is, see, this is the cluster, but driver is sitting outside the cluster. Okay, it will be in the our computer or our system itself. Okay, where we'll do the Spark Submit. So basically our driver or Spark session will get created in the system itself. Okay, okay, and let's try to understand next the other thing, cluster mode. So let's open this. So this is the different, guys. So in this scenario you can see the same diagram, however this is our cluster, and this time the driver or spark session not getting created in our system itself. It is getting created inside the cluster. Okay, so here inside the cluster, the driver or Spark session getting created. It is requesting the resource manager to create the executor with the resources, I mean RAM and core. Then it is assigned the job and getting it completed. Okay. Then why we need the client mode and cluster mode? We understood the difference. In client mode, it is outside the cluster and it is in our system, but in the cluster mode, what we are seeing, it is on the cluster. Our driver is on the cluster, not in our system. Okay, so why? Let's try to understand that. Okay, client versus cluster mode, quick comparison. Okay, features, driver location. In this case, in client mode, driver location will be submit machine, I mean our local system. Okay, but cluster mode, but in the cluster mode, inside the cluster our driver will be situated in cluster itself. Okay. Okay, dependency, stable network needed. As suppose it's in your laptop, in your personal laptop, or from where you are submitting the job. It's in client mode. Okay, you are submitting a job. You suppose you don't have the stable network. What will happen? Your job is running in the cluster and your driver who is responsible to run all the job, I mean your driver is like your manager, right? Project manager, right? So suppose your project manager is in home and your team is working in the office and there is in between no connection, right? The situation you can imagine, right? So that will happen in case of if you don't have a stable network in client mode. Okay, but suppose in the cluster mode, independent of submitter, I mean it doesn't matter if you are submitting in the cluster mode, is it is doesn't matter that you in your home you have the network connection or not. I mean if you have telephone connection, so that your manager or project manager can connect with connect in the office with the team and make everything every work done, right? So this like cluster mode, your manager, I mean driver sitting itself in the office, I mean whenever they want to connect or make want to make any work done, they can just request their team and get the work done, right? Ideal for, so client mode, it's ideal for testing and development purpose. Okay, you can do the testing and development using client mode, but for production or large job it's better to use the cluster mode. Okay, because suppose you are running a big job in the cluster client mode. Okay, so in the client mode what will happen, your all the resources including executors and all will sit in the cluster, and suppose you are running from your driver is sitting in your laptop. Okay, now after 2 hours you need you need to turn off the laptop. Okay, then when you if you turn off the laptop, your job will get stuck. Okay, your job will not run. So that's the difference. But if you your driver who is responsible to do all the job, if it's sitting in the cluster itself, then even if you close your laptop, your driver is still running, okay, in the cluster. So it will make sure to complete all the job. Okay, then fault tolerance in client mode it is low, but cluster mode it is high. So which should you use and when you should use? Purpose. So client mode you can use for debugging or development purpose, as we have discussed, for testing purpose. Cluster mode you should use a production purpose or big pipelines. Okay, uses client mode, interactive queries, small queue jobs, I mean small jobs, you can use the client mode. Okay, suppose which type of jobs you can get easily completed within few minutes or few hours. Okay, that type of job you can continue with client mode. But you will sometime have the job which will run for hours, like sometime it can 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours of job. I mean, huge amount of data, okay, heavy workload. That kind of time you will use the cluster mode. And reliability depend on submitter machine, and but in the cluster mode it's independent, okay. So reliability is just, I gave the example, if you shut down your system, your driver will get shut down and your job, all the job will get stuck, okay. So that is the basic thing, guys, basic difference between client mode and cluster mode. So that's it, guys. I hope I was able to explain you the client mode and cluster mode. See you in the next video. Bye bye, have a good day.